Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Saturday morning live stream. Sorry about the lateness. I was having some weird issues with my computer, as usual, but eventually I'm going to get this all working like it's supposed to. I got a couple new things coming, and I got a couple cool products that I'm going to be putting into my stream. So it's still a work in progress, but we got it working. So happy, happy, happy. So thanks for holding on here while I got it working. I see we got most of our regulars here. It's good to see everybody. Thanks for coming today. So, couple things. Yep, I finally got a haircut. um, Couple things. We got some moderators in here. Last week we had a couple people that were upset because the winners, I guess, didn't ask any questions in the stream. So I'm going to leave it to my moderators to check the people that are entering the contest. You got to remember you have to be a subscriber to this channel, and you have to ask a question in the stream during the stream in order to win. I'm not going to tell you what I'm giving away today. It's going to be exposed at the end of the stream. I'm going to do that a couple times because it's kind of fun for you guys to guess what it could be. So should be pretty good. So a couple things to discuss. For those that don't know, I went and decided to get some pet frogs. So now I have some frogs in the house, which I had never had any type of frogs or lizards or anything in my life. So it's pretty cool. For those that are interested in that kind of thing, you could hit me up and I can kind of tell you what's going on there. I did a little bit of automation, of course, so not a lot. They're very small and it's a very small cage. And if you want to take a look at it, take a look on the Facebook page. I posted some pictures the other day. Um, Today we're gonna go over auto water changes. I did a video last week or the following week on 5 of them and how I felt and my opinions on each system. But we're gonna kind of dive into basically whether or not they're even necessary, and we're gonna dive into whether or not it's something that will benefit most of you guys. So I've been running my tanks, all 3 actually, with no water changes for since the inception of the one tank. My little nano here, I don't run water changes on, which we're going to go over specifically why. And I don't run any water changes on my fish tank, my big 300. So it's very interesting how the hobby has changed over the years. When I first started, water changes were a big thing, and now you're starting to see people not doing water changes. They have, like I said, they have a number of kits out there to get water changes going, but is it really necessary? So that's kind of what we're going to go over. So let me look at the chat, see if there's any questions so far. Anthony, are optical sensors a necessity to an auto water changer? Do you do it based on flow sensors or a timer? Yeah, we can go over that. I typically like using optical sensors so I know exactly where the water level is on both tanks, or in this case, one tank. I will show you some examples of when you would need to do definitely optical sensors. Um, did I automate the misting and humidity control? Sort of. I have an automatic misting system that I put on it, but that's pretty much about it. I got a little humidity sensor on the side, and I'm gonna have to find something that maybe will tell me if the humidity goes down, like an alarm or something. I haven't really done much research on it yet, so we'll see as it goes on. Yeah, so we're gonna be eventually. I'm gonna have a green screen back here. Eventually, I'm gonna change my camera. I tried to work on it this weekend or this week and was having some issues with it, so I'm waiting on some parts. But this is gonna become a little more professional, I guess, and we'll have some cool stuff that we're gonna be doing. Let's see. So Kerry Reefer asked, what are the must-have equipment for an auto change system? So that's exactly what we're going to go over today, and specifically go over different things. So Producer Reef had a good question. Dosing two-part, I noticed the salinity raises. Do you think by doing auto water changes you can help balance the salinity from the two-part? So it's a good question, because if you're dosing two-part and you're dosing that much two-part and your salinity is going up, it might be time for a calcium reactor. And I say that because I'm only dosing about 120 milliliters a day, and I do not have a salinity rise on mine. I do a couple things which we'll mention on auto water changes. I don't know if that will help any type of balance, because all you're doing is taking water out and putting water in. So if you were taking water out that had a high salinity and putting water in that had a lower salinity than the water you're taking out, technically that should bring it down, but eventually I'm assuming it might just level out. I don't know. You cannot splice an optical sensor into the breakout box. Specifically the Neptune optical sensors have a power wire. If you take a look at my latest video on splicing, you'll see that it has 4 wires. So the breakout box is a 2-wire connection, and it's a contact closure that does not have power. Okay. Let's see. Would you use a... Okay, so Jeffrey asks, would you use an FMM or a bob for the auto mixing and changing? So that's a good question. You can use the bob, but again, you would need something that is a sensor that has a 2-wire, maybe a float sensor that has no power. Then you can use the bob, definitely. Brian's asking, on my new water change system, I can't decide if I use the dose or the Versa. So we're going to go over that. Let's see. Yeah, so Brian has a good point. You can actually put an optical sensor in the breakout box, but then you have to supply the power with something else. I think it's just better to get an FMM, honestly. Courtney will have to do Reef automation without a space. Do water because my wife always yells at me from the noise. That's a pro tip. Or don't tell her that you're doing it overnight. What will work with the 3-part balling method? That's how I do my, Courtney, that's how I do my tank. I have 3-part balling. I use Aquaforest. So Aquaforest, if you guys don't know, is basically the balling method, the 1, 2, 3. And auto water changes really have nothing to do with how you're dosing. So we're going to go over that. Anthony asked how many I have. I have a lot of FMMs. I think I have 7 FMMs, maybe 6. I don't remember. Okay, so let's see. So a couple things. So I had a number of questions here we're going to go over. The first thing is, are water changes necessary? That's going to be the first discussion that we're going to go through. So I think that my opinion is, if you've been doing this a long time, like I have, water changes are becoming something you do not have to do. Now let's explain why we do water changes. So the reason we do water changes is, 1, to refresh trace elements, 2, to get rid of high nutrients, and 3, to maintain stability with our 3 main elements, which are calcium, magnesium, and alkalinity. Now, in a small tank, let's say something like mine over here, let's say a 5-gallon or a 10-gallon tank, I can see water changes being an absolute necessity, because those smaller systems don't have the ability to replenish those elements, don't have the ability to replenish pretty much anything. So the recommendation would definitely be doing a water change. On such a small system, my recommendation would be, let's do it once a week. Now, is it necessary to buy an automatic water change system for a smaller tank? I would say yes, because I like to automate everything. But if you can take a bucket of a gallon here and just replace it every week, that's going to be fine. Now, in a larger tank, do you need to do a water change? Now, there's a big debate whether or not you need to do water changes. Again, a water change is strictly meant to do the following that I just mentioned: reduce nutrients, replace trace elements, and replace your main calcium, magnesium, and alkalinity. Now, most tanks that are out there, unless you have an all softy tank or have very little coral, that water change is going to be enough, and you don't need to dose, because the water change itself is going to replace the trace elements and is going to replace your big three. So the problem is, if you have a lot of coral, the water changes alone are not going to replace enough trace elements or calcium, magnesium, and alkalinity, and that's why we have to dose, and that's why we have to do calcium reactors and so forth. So the water change itself is not helping with trace elements, and it's not helping with the big three, because your corals are consuming it at such a fast rate. These water changes don't have enough elements in them to maintain those trace elements. Now, producer Reef just had a really good question. How do we know how much trace elements is being used? Now, I use ICP testing for this. And again, this is based on factual evidence that I have done with my own tank, that ICP testing has shown me that I have to dose a specific amount of trace elements to keep that up. So the only way you can know is by buying a test kit that would test a lot of ICP traces. Unfortunately, they don't make test kits for that. So that's why all these companies sell trace element kits and all these different things. Now, if you're using what Courtney said, a balling method or a trace supplement that it's all combined into one system, like Alpha Reef by Tropic Marin, or a balling method such as Aquaforce or also Tropic Marin, that gives you all of your elements in a equal fashion to that of your calcium consumption. Now, there's other companies that do the same thing. I'm sure you've heard of Red Sea ABCD. You'll notice on the package that it tells you to dose based on your calcium consumption. That's how we're able to figure out our trace element consumption. We're able to figure it out by how much consumption of calcium is being done or made in the tank. So again, we go back to water changes. Are they necessary? Well, if you're dosing enough trace elements, you're dosing enough calcium, alkalinity, and magnesium on a daily basis, and you're keeping your nutrients in check, where is the need for the water change? And that's the whole point of the discussion today. So again, I have 3 tanks. I don't do water changes on any of them. The only time I recommend doing a water change on a system is if you have a catastrophic thing happens. Let's say you accidentally poured something in the tank and it causes ammonia to spike. Or let's say you dropped a screw inside the tank and all of a sudden your lead is rising. Now again, you wouldn't know this without an ICP test or if you're testing ammonia every week. On a stable system, generally you're not going to need to do anything. So what I'm kind of getting at as a whole is water changes are kind of a thing of the past. And again, if you're using a smaller tank, I see water changes as being more of a necessity over a larger tank. Now, when I say larger tank, I mean 50 gallons or above. Anything below 50 gallons, I think you can get away with water changes, especially if you have just softies in there. Reefing Robbie had a good question. How many volts does the optical sensor need? I do not know the answer to that question, but I can tell you that the FMM has a 1.5 amp 12 volt power supply. So I would assume that it is 12 volts on the optical sensors. So I do, Anthony had a question here. I do ICP testing once a month. Usually, it depends on how much money you want to spend on them because they're very expensive. I think they're $45 a test. So I bought like a pack of 8 for really cheap. So I'm able to do like 8 months worth, and I've been doing them once a month. If I make a major change to my tank, then I'm doing them a little more often, or I do one and then I give it a week and then I send another one in just to see if anything happened. So water changes can be really, really beneficial for people that are struggling with nutrient problems. So if you don't have a good refugium or a good biopellet reactor, or you're doing carbon dosing, or you're doing all these different methods to reduce nutrients, and you're still having issues, I would then recommend you doing water changes to keep your nutrients down. Now, here's the other thing about water changes. There's a ton of beneficial bacteria in the tank. So when that bacteria grabs a hold of the rocks, and it's typically in the rocks, that beneficial bacteria is what takes care of your dinos, takes care of algae problems, takes care of all these pests and all these things that you can get in your tank. Now, if you're constantly doing water changes, there is potential that you are removing the bacteria and not putting new bacteria in. So the recommendation has always been with water changes is to dose bacteria at the same time. That way that water that you're putting in there has the beneficial bacteria. So that's another thing about doing water changes, is you're going to potentially strip the tank of possible bacteria that's helping the tank. Okay. Howard had a good question. Benefit of water changes is the most people have a big reservoir of salt water to do water change when something goes wrong. Correct. Yeah, if something goes wrong, definitely that's a very important thing. So I would recommend that you do have a reservoir with water, so that way if you do have a catastrophic, thing happen, you have water on on the side. What's going on, Ben? I use ATI ICP testing. Yeah, so Insane Racer has a 29 gallon. Now he's got an interesting point here. He's dosing two part, but of course the tank can't keep up with just water change at 29 gallons. Now remember, I said 50 gallons or below, you can typically get away with auto water changing on a softy only system or a low consumption tank. But if you have a lot of SPS or things that take up a lot of core consumption, then absolutely you're going to have to do two part. And then water changes really wouldn't help. What is the best nutrient export? That's a really good question. I think the best nutrient export is anything that's natural, such as an algae scrubber or a refugium. You got to remember, in the ocean, there's tons of seaweed, there's tons of, all kinds of stuff in the ocean that keeps nutrients at a relatively low level. If you go online and find out what the nutrient level of most of the oceans are, you'd be very surprised to find out how low they actually are. In some cases in the ocean, I found after doing some research that phosphates are actually higher in a lot of areas than we do on our fish tank. Um, Surprisingly, I can tell you from my experience right now as I'm speaking to you, my nutrients are very high. I have a phosphate level of about 0.22, 0.23, and I'm running a Cato reactor. And what I've noticed is that the Cato reactor is getting all sorts of crazy algae inside it, but nothing in the display. So my corals are extremely happy. They have tons of nutrients, but none of the pesty type stuff. And actually, most of my SPS are really happy that I have a little bit of higher nutrients. So every tank's different. So it's really hard to always tell you which one's going to be the best solution for you. I do believe after my testing and what I've done in my home that higher nutrients actually is a good thing. And I'm noticing more and more reefers out there are maintaining a higher nutrient level, which then begs to the question, why do we do water changes, right? So again, before we start even talking about auto water changes, I really wanted to go over why we need to do water changes and if we need to do water changes. Because these water change methods are very expensive, and is it really necessary? And that's what you have to decide. Now, I do have a point to make about what I said earlier, and that is new tanks. Now, when you set up a new tank, most new tanks, unless you're getting water and rocks from someone else, most new tanks are going to have zero bacteria, zero colonization of anything whatsoever living. And therefore, you're going to run into problems if you just start dosing and you just start putting trace elements unknowing what you're doing. So I always recommend, specifically if you're a newer reefer or a new tank, that you do water changes for, I would say, about 6 months to a year. And what that's going to do is that's going to help the cycle, first of all, because you're going to be removing all the excess nutrients, any type of excess ammonia, any type of excess nitrite during the cycle. And on top of that, you're putting in trace elements into the system and getting them kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? You're getting a lot of trace elements in the system, so that way when you start to put corals in there, there's plenty of nutrients and plenty of trace elements ready to go for the tank. So I do recommend in the first 6 months to a year, do water changes, and maybe do them every 2 weeks. Even every month is fine, especially if you don't have a lot of stuff in there. Okay? So that is my recommendation specifically for water changes as general. Okay. Let's see what Gary said. Do you think it is easier just doing the auto water change in lieu of testing and doing dosing a reef tank with a small percentage of corals? Gary, I believe that's kind of what I was explaining. I believe that's exactly what I was saying, actually. I do recommend highly that if you have a smaller tank and there's no need to dose, then you will do automatic water changes. Automatic water changes are really there for people that, again, have nutrient problems or have a smaller tank. I don't think it's necessary to do these gigantic water changes or even the smaller ones in bigger tanks every day or every other day or every week to maintain something that you already have other products maintaining for you. So, all right, so let's kind of go over the different water changes, or water change systems. So if you watched my video from this week, you'll know that there are basically 5 out there. If anyone out there knows of another system, let me know. Now again, in the automation world, you can definitely have, you know, a solenoid over here and a solenoid over here and program all kinds of stuff to do an automatic water change. But what we're specifically talking is we're talking about devices themselves that do the water change for you, and therefore you don't need to do all this programming. That's kind of what we're talking about today, is automatic water change systems that are already done for you. Okay? Desert Reef wasn't feeling good this morning, so I don't think he's going to be joining us, unfortunately. Um, so let's go through right there. So let's go through. I know someone had mentioned why I recommended the Auto Aqua over a dose. We're going to kind of go over exactly why I recommend Auto Aqua over a dose. Okay? And again, as you all know, I have a lot of Neptune products, but what I don't have my Neptune doing is anything in terms of automatic water changes. Okay? So this is what's called a liter meter. I have done a review on a liter meter, and I've actually mentioned it quite a few times on the stream. I have 2 liter meters that I use, and I will explain exactly what I use them for. The liter meter itself can do a number of things. It can dose, so you can have it dose, from a reservoir of any sort. You can have it drip calc if you want. You can have it do automatic water changes, of course. You can have it do all kinds of different things. Okay, so I find that the liter meter as a whole is the most reliable of the systems we're going to talk about. Not to say Versas aren't reliable, not to say Doses aren't reliable, or Genesis, or what we're going to go over, but what I can tell you from experience is these pumps last a long time, they don't need a lot of service, and they work very, very well, specifically in my situation where I have to pump water a very far distance. So what is nice about the liter meter is, first of all, it's quiet, and second of all, it pumps a lot of water far distances. Now, I've had this discussion with many people. Will the Versa pump far? Will the Dose pump far? Yes, it will pump far, but it does it at a very slow rate. This will pump approximately 150 to 200 milliliters a minute, 75 feet away. So these will do water changes very, very quickly at a far distance. Whereas if you're doing a dose or you're doing a Versa, yes, it'll do that water change, but if you have a large system, you're going to be waiting forever while it's doing it. So that's what I'm kind of getting at. And if you watch my video, I mentioned that you should always have your dose or you should always have your Versa next to your tank because of how slow it actually doses. Whereas a liter meter, you could put this thing in your garage and have your tanks all the way across the house and it will do it for you, and it will do it at a quick rate. All right, let me catch up on some of the questions here. Doing water changes with a dosing pump? Yeah, it sure does. We'll go over that. Carry Reefer, I don't do water changes. I do carbon, vodka, and dose, tropical marine A and K. Exactly. Carry Reefer just kind of hit the nail on the head. If you're doing everything you need to do to keep your tank stable, you don't need to do automatic water changes. I don't do automatic water changes, and my tank is super stable and everything's super happy. Can dose pumps keep up? Yes, they can, but as I mentioned earlier, Ravi, they are slow. So if you have a large tank, it's going to take a while to do a water change, and they're also very loud. Okay. Can you just use any too low? Yes. Sleeve stack, I think I mentioned that a little bit ago. You can, of course, get a solenoid over here, an optical sensor over here, and make your own automatic water change. But today what we're going over is devices that do it for you, essentially. Let's see. Okay, so the liter meter is going to be your best bet. It's going to be probably one of the more expensive parts out there. So it's $346 as you can see, but that only includes the one pump and the controller. Now, unfortunately, if you want to get additional pumps, you have to buy them separately. And you can see if you ever have to replace the pump itself, it's a $126 pump. Okay, let me show you. Go back to liter meter. You can see that the liter meter remote pump is 160. So 145 or 146 plus 160 would be your system here for an automatic water change. Liter meter is extremely quiet, Robbie. You barely even hear them. So what you would need to do an automatic water change is the liter meter itself, and you would need the liter meter remote module. One's going to be pulling and one's going to be pushing. Now, people are probably wondering, because I mentioned I have two of these, but I don't really do water changes. So the question is, well, why do I have them? So how I'm doing a water change is actually pretty cool. Is I have my liter meter doing a water change with my nano tank using the water from my 100. So what I'm doing is I'm taking water out of my 100 every day, about 15 gallons, and replacing it with water from my nano. So they're constantly replacing water with each other, and therefore both tanks keep the exact same water. So what's nice about doing that is my nano has zero filtration on it. The nano has just a filter sock. It doesn't have any dosing. It doesn't have any nutrient control. Doesn't have anything. So it's literally just taking the water from my 100 that has all of my filters and everything and replacing it with the nano. So what's really cool about that is in my nano, I can put whatever corals I want. I can put in SPS, I can put in anything that requires high consumption. It doesn't matter because it's getting the water from the 100, and therefore it's always going to have and maintain and be stable, especially with the nutrients. So that's how I'm using my liter meter. Like I said, I'm doing a liter meter. I have the remote module pump, which is this guy right here, and I have that sitting behind my nano. And then I have my liter meter, my main unit, sitting next to my 100, and all they're doing is taking water in between each other. Okay. Anthony had a question, is my nano an all-in-one? It is an all-in-one, and I'm not using any of the all-in-one features. If you have time, can you cover the use of optical sensors in the NSW and OSW reservoir container alarm programming, or should I just review the alarms video? I don't know what NSW and OSW is. Can you tell me what that is, Sandra? Alarm and programming, etc. Review your... Yeah, I think, oh man, I don't remember if I discussed that. If we have time later, I will show you that, or you can PM me on Facebook or get to me somehow, and I can teach you how to do it. Um, oh, new saltwater. Yeah, so we can kind of go over that. Again, that goes more into the question that Slaze Stack had, which is kind of making an automatic water change system using sensors, which unfortunately we're not going to really go over today, but you can definitely message me and I can talk to you about it one-to-one. Okay, so the SpectraPure LiterMeter, again, it also has an ability of knowing where the water level is on one of your other devices. So this guy, the $202 model, has a sensor here which will turn off the pump if the water gets too high. So it's kind of neat. Just an extra feature that you could use. So that's another module that they have here. So again, liter meter, great little piece of equipment to do water changes. You can set this guy up to do, you know, how many milliliters a day. I think the most you can do is like 999 liters or something ridiculous. Um, so let's see. It's about those who have automatic water change bottles running ATO. We're doing that without. About those who have an automatic water, but it's running an ATO, how'd you go about doing that without the ATO activated? We're going to go over that in St. Reefer. And Brian had a really good question. That is not true. So I had a dose trying to do water changes, and if they're saying it's 250 milliliters a minute, then they must be on drugs because mine was going slow. I don't know how accurate that actually is. I would have to try it and see how fast it can really go. If you're doing 250 milliliters a minute, and you got to consider the fact that your tank, Brian, is gigantic. So I don't know how, first of all, it is really loud, which we've discussed. But the fact that it's going to take, I don't know how long to do a water change on such a large system like that, uh, it's going to wear out those pumps real fast. And that's the big thing about the liter meter is I've had these pumps running. I haven't touched them in 2.5 years. I haven't touched them. They haven't seized up on me. They haven't had a single issue. SpectraPure recommends every 500 hours to uh, not replace them, but 500 hours of use. Let me tell you that it does have a use meter inside, so it tells you how many hours the pump's been on. They recommend every 500 hours to inspect it. I have never touched it. Okay, so this is an interesting question, and Insane Rafer came up with a really good question. How do you manage to do this without your ATO activating? Okay, so we're going to go over this as best as I can, and I'll try to explain it the best I can, okay? Brian, I'll explain your question also in a second. Um, so the trick to doing this is, first of all, you want it to remove water first and then replace water. You don't want it to replace water first and then remove it. Now, of course, if you were to replace water first, then remove it, the ATO would never have an issue. So how I figured this out is I have sensors, and this is where the sensors come in. I have a high and a low sensor on my nano tank right here. So what I do is I have the liter meter turn on only during certain periods of time during the day, and during those periods of time, I turn off my auto water change or my auto top off. So for instance, if I'm going to do my auto water change between the hours of noon and 3 o'clock, let's say, I have my auto water change system, whatever that is, either a pump or a system, plugged into an outlet, and I have it shut off. Now there's sensors in my Nano that tell me when the auto water change is high and when the auto water change is low. And that's how I know when the auto water change is at its point where it needs to be, And then once it's gotten to that point, or once it's been stable for that point for a period of time, I then have the ATO come back on. Now again, there's a lot of programming involved, but the best way to do this is, like I said, an easy way to do this is to have your liter meter only turn on during certain periods of the day, and then your ATO turn on the rest of the periods of the day. Then you won't have to worry about that. Okay? I hope that explained it. So Brian had a good question on liter, how fast does it go? Okay, the liter meter has to be calibrated when you first buy it. The liter meter has a different speed based on how far the distance is. So for instance, mine go roughly about 75 to 80 feet away, and mine are measured at about 180 milliliters a minute. And again, I had to calibrate that. I would say that their pumps typically will be between 150 to about 190 milliliters a minute. But again, it's dependent upon how far or how close the distance is. Brett, you can use any pumps for auto water change. Again, I'm going to mention this again. I don't know if Brett's late, but there are so many ways you can do auto water changes. Okay, you can use tons of different pumps and different sensors, solenoids, all kinds of stuff. But what we're discussing today are devices that do it for you. Okay, we could have we can have another stream where we talk about how we do that actually, you know. Okay, Brian had another question. With my new water, so I'm going to take water out of my corn and replace it with my fish tank, and then replace the fish tank with fresh salt water. Okay, well, you got an interesting setup. Now, the liter meter has the ability to do 3 pumps at once. So you could actually have the liter meter do that for you. You can have it do 1 pump to send water to the quarantine tank, 1 pump to send the quarantine tank out, and then you can have 1 to do the fresh salt water. However, I'm sure everybody on the stream is also thinking what I'm thinking right now. You definitely do not want to take water out of your quarantine and replace it with your fish tank water. The whole point of the quarantine tank is that it is separate from your big tank. You don't want your quarantine tank to have anything to do with your main tank. Now, I don't know if you meant quarantine tank or frag tank, but definitely not want to replace water with a quarantine tank. So what is your opinion on continuous versus weekly water changes? That's a really good question, Brandon. I think a continuous water change, which is what we're kind of talking about, is very similar to that of dosing. I think a weekly water change is your better bet, so that way all the nutrients and all the, whatever junk that needs to build up in the tank has time to build up in the tank. I think that's actually very important for the tank. It's a really interesting question because if you're doing a daily water change or auto dose or whatever, you're basically dosing the tank. You're basically taking dirty water out, putting new water in. I don't know if it's really doing much on a daily basis. Maybe someone can chime in and disagree with me, but I think you're better off just for the fact that the tank needs to build up all of that junk. It's really important that it builds up bacteria, it builds up, all the stuff. And if you're constantly taking it out, I don't think it's actually good for the tank. What about the pump breaks and the second will continue to do water change? How can you secure that won't add too much water? Well, with any electronic, that's bound to happen, unfortunately. Again, with the SpectraPure, I haven't had that issue. What's nice to have, of course, is a salinity monitor. That's usually will tell you if something's wrong. Like the other day, I noticed my salinity was just constantly going down, and then I noticed that one of my liter meter pumps, the plug had come loose. So, I mean, you can definitely figure it out by the salinity. Okay, so that's the SpectraPure LiterMeter. I think that's going to be your #1 automatic water change system out there. Again, self-contained system. It is going to be pricey at 350 plus the 160. I will tell you that SpectraPure is local here in Tempe, Arizona, where I am. Every time I've called them, they've been super helpful, and of course I've walked in there before and I've talked to the owner of the company. They are just such a great company. I really like them, and I really like their customer support, and their warranty is fantastic on any of their products. As I'm sure all of you know, I use all of I use all of their filters, so I really like all their filters. Um, okay, so let's see. The next one is, of course, the Versa, which we'll go over a little bit. I'm not going to really go over the Versa too much. Um, oh, not that one. So Daniel, yes, you can run, as I mentioned earlier, you can run any pump, any sensor. You don't need a dose. We're not going to go over that, but yes, you can do water changes many different ways. So the Versa is going to be your go-to for kind of getting this done in a cheaper fashion and a much more reliable fashion. Okay, you will need two Versas. One Versa is going to do water out, and one's going to do water in. Kind of like the LiterMeter. The only difference is you have to program these with an app. You program them one to do this amount during this day. You program the same amount and the other one to do it during this day, and there's your auto water change. The Versa is really quiet. You're talking about $300 for two of them. They can pump pretty far. I believe they can do 300 milliliters a minute. When you do that kind of speed on them, I have run them before, and they tend to be a little on the louder side at between 200 and 300 milliliters per minute. Not very loud, but definitely audible. So if you're doing this during the day, you're definitely going to hear it. They are extremely easy to set up. I mean, you can set these up in a matter of minutes. And again, you're going to want to have one at your drain or your pulling water, and you're going to have one at your fresh salt water to pump back into the tank. So I was going to do the two Versas that I actually gave away. I was going to use those for the water change on the small system and the nano system that I talked about earlier. But I just found that the LiterMeters work better at the distance that I needed them. So I never really, I tried the Versa at about 50 something feet, and it just wasn't doing the speed that I needed it to do for what I was doing. It took about 10 minutes to do a water change, which for me was a little bit too slow. So the LiterMeter does the water change in about 2 minutes. So good product, good easy way to do water changes. But there's another one. What do you think is the best percentage of a week to change each week? I've seen everything from none to half. Well, Ben, I think you've been here since the beginning, so I'm going to mention kind of what I said earlier. The question you first have to figure out is, do you need to do water changes? So the best percentage is going to always be what is the amount of water that's going to maintain what you're trying to maintain. So if you're trying to maintain nutrients, you got to figure out what the best percentage is to maintain nutrients. If you're trying to do water changes to maintain trace elements or magnesium, calcium, and alkalinity, then you're going to do the best percentage that's going to maintain those elements. Again, my opinion on water changes is there's no need to do them if you're already maintaining what I just mentioned. And you got to remember, like 10 years ago, they didn't have dosing pumps and all this crazy nonsense that they have now that lets you get that stuff in line without doing water changes. Nowadays, water changes are optional. That's my opinion. So the LiterMeter, basically it pumps the new water, then it goes to the next pump, then it goes to the next pump. That's how it works. So it will never pump two pumps at the same time. It does them in order. It does A, B, C, and it separates them by 192 seconds. So it pumps, stops, goes 192 seconds, pumps, stops, goes 192 seconds, pumps, stops, goes 190, and then it just repeats that. And it pumps the amount based on what you put in there. So if you put in 24 milliliters a day, it's only going to do that percentage of 24 milliliters per day during those those periods of time that I was just talking about. So I hope that explains that. Okay, so Versus, great product, very easy for you to do an automatic water change. And again, this would probably be a good budget buy for doing that. So we're going to talk about the Auto Aqua. Now I like this piece of equipment. I think I had mentioned that it is probably in the top 3. And there's a reason why it's in the top 3. And I'm going to go over why I think it's probably your best bet. For people that have smaller tanks that want to do water changes, this is perfect, okay? Now, if you have a larger tank, I don't think this is the right way to go, okay? When I say larger tanks, I'm going to say anything above 50 gallons. If you have something under 50 gallons, I believe this is a perfect thing to do, okay? What's nice about this unit is it also has an ATO built in. So to the person that asked, I don't remember who asked about how do you take out, I think it was Brett, how you take off ATO when you're doing auto water changes. Well, what's so great about this is this actually does it for you all in one unit. Okay. So as you can see, they even say suitable for nano or pico aquariums. This is a very good, easy way to maintain nutrients and everything in a smaller tank without doing dosing pumps, without doing trace elements. You just do a water change every day with this, and that'll usually maintain the smaller tanks. The only thing I don't like about these units is the pumps. The pumps they're small, they're a little slow. I mean, they're these little micro pumps. That's really about it. I mean, you can see the flow rate is only 74 gallons per hour, but again, you're talking about this little tiny pump that has to pump it. So these have to be pretty close to your tank to use them. But I think it's a great piece of equipment, and it's only like $200, and it comes with everything you need. So again, another auto water change system, but more for the smaller tanks. Okay, so Brandon had a good question. How long would you store premix? One thing I keep reading is that the alkalinity, but mixing water before auto rate seems to almost defeat the point. If you go actually online and look at BRS's, they did a video on storing salt water. You will actually find out that it's not really that true. It usually takes something like, I think they were saying like 8 weeks for it to maybe even get any type of slight adjustment. And if you look at certain salt mixes, I notice that certain salt mixes will actually drop alkalinity just a tad, but it's not something to be that worried about, because generally in a system like mine, I have a 50-gallon reservoir, and that 50 gallons is gone by the end of the week. So I would have to say to you that I wouldn't worry about that. It's just not something that I've seen as an issue. Again, going back to the beginning of the stream, if you're using water changes to maintain alkalinity, then you're going to find out what percentage you need to do and how much water you need to do on a daily basis. And therefore, that alkalinity, even if it was to drop, you have it on a specific schedule where you know it's going to drop. Let's say it drops, I don't know, one DKH, which it won't. You know that if you get all your water out of there by the end of the week, that one DKH is never going to happen, and therefore you don't have to worry about it. Yeah, they did, Brandon, they did a whole video on alkalinity dropping or raising over a period of time with all these different salt mixes. Tiatel, I actually don't know if the pumps can be upgraded on this. They are standard DC-12, so I assume you could. I don't know if they'd have enough power for specific pumps. Again, this would be fantastic if you could put this on a larger system, so that would be a good question to ask the people that make it to see if you could. But then again, there's something called a Genesis system, which we're going to go over, that is definitely meant for larger systems, and you can put whatever pump you want. But again, quite expensive. All right, so the next one, of course, is surprisingly the one I would not recommend. People, I have a Neptune shirt on. People know I love Neptune products, but this is definitely, unfortunately, not something I'd recommend for water changes. Now, I'll give you my reasons and I'll explain why the dose is not really the best for auto water changes. Now, the one thing about the dose, of course, is that you need an apex. So if we're talking about standalone automatic water change systems, this could end up being the most expensive one on the list because you're going to need an apex system just to run this thing. And one of the biggest complaints I have, and I tried it, and I can tell you, if you're going to get a dose to your automatic water changes, it works. It's relatively slow, especially on a larger system, and it is loud. So when I say loud, I mean you can hear this thing through the walls. It's loud. Now, if you're doing it for general dosing, it's perfectly fine because it actually doses at such a small amount that the pumps actually go slower. But when you're doing automatic water changes, they do something in the programming to make them run faster, and they just are really loud. My concern has always been with doing automatic water changes with a dose is that these pumps are just not going to last. Again, I have no evidence to say that they're not going to last by doing automatic water changes. That's just my opinion based on how fast they're going and how much they're doing. So my recommendation is if you're using this for water change, be prepared to spend, again, $250 on the unit, and if you don't have an Apex, $500 for the Apex, so you're at $750 just to do a water change. Be prepared for it to be loud, and be prepared for it to be slow. So what I'm getting at is if you have a larger system, I don't think this is a good idea. But if you have a 50 gallon, maybe 100 gallon system, maybe a nano system, this would be perfect. Okay? Lee just kind of put the point home. I have a dose in the basement, and the wife hears it on the second floor. So, yeah, I wish I could. Again, I wish I could give this the highest praise I could because it's a Neptune product, and I love Neptune products. But unfortunately, this one is not my favorite for automatic water testing or automatic water changes. For everything else, it's awesome. I have 3 doses dosing. I do dose Fido. I dose my 2-part with it. Love it. Love it to death. It's my favorite dosing piece of equipment. I wish they had more heads on it, and I wish it wasn't so big. But for automatic water changes, I just don't recommend it, unfortunately. Let's see. The next one is the Genesis. Now, I will tell you that before we go over the Genesis, I do not know a lot about this product. I know Howard keeps mentioning his Stender pump. I love you, Howard. If you guys haven't seen Howard, I did a video for Howard where I completely upgraded his classic to a new one for him. Yes, you can use multiple different pumps to do automatic water changes. But again, Howard, I'm not going to say you're wrong or right, but we're going over we're going over systems that do everything for you. I don't know, does Center have an automatic water change system? Because if they do, I'd like to look it up. Again, pumps, we're not talking about pumps. We're really just talking about automatic water change systems. Okay, so let's discuss the Genesis system. Now, the first thing, like I was trying to explain to you, is I don't know a lot about it. They were probably the first, and someone can maybe tell me if I'm wrong, they were probably the first system out there to do automatic water changes at such a high rate. You can do massive water changes with this thing. And what I love about this product is you can program it on schedule. You can program it to do, once a day, once a week, you can program it to do water changes all the time, anytime you want. But what's also wonderful about this product, which none of the other products can do, is there is a button in the middle that does a manual water change for you. So what's so cool about this product is, let's say you don't want to do water changes on a schedule. And let's say you just want to do a water change when you have a problem or when you want to do a water change on your own manually, all you can do, and this goes back to the ATO thing, you could turn off your ATO, go over to this piece of a device, push a button, and it does the water change for you on a button. Which again, you could do that with a Versa, you could do that with a DOS, you could probably program a DOS to do it for you on it. But what I love about this is there's just a button that just does it for you. And it's quite a nice, useful feature. Um, what I also like about this system is it comes with your reservoirs, it comes with your sensors, it comes with everything you need in one package. Now, you can get the bigger pumps that they sell, or of course, you can buy your own pumps for this. And that's what I really like about this system. As you can see, you can plug in any pumps you want at the bottom of this guy. I find that this system in terms of size is quite large. Now, people don't realize when I say large, and I try to explain it the best I can, but the reservoirs are 10 inches by 8 inches by 8, so they're not gigantic reservoirs. I think I measured they're like 5 gallons each or something like that. I can't remember. But the control module is 4 by 6 by 3. Now, when you see 4 by 6 by 3, you're like, oh, that's really small. But let's really consider this, okay? It's about the size maybe of a DOS, but so it's about this big, okay? Then you're talking about this, about roughly this tall, right? And then this deep. So let me kind of explain this again. It may look small on the picture here, but when you have this in your system, and again, I've only seen one actually at a customer's house, it surprisingly is quite large. It doesn't look large in the pictures, but it is a little large. So just be aware of that. Like you can't really fit this. You definitely can't do this for like a small tank. It's just too big. I would recommend this for larger tanks for sure. Coral Lovers looks like great for a nano tank. I'm actually going to disagree with you on that. I would look at an Auto Aqua for that. This would be more for a larger tank because you can put whatever pumps you want on this. You can program it to do anything you want. But here is the big con to the unit. It is $720 for the system. Okay. So again, is it worth $720 when you can buy yourself a LiterMeter for maybe $200 less? You could buy two Versas for, $600 less. So again, this company's been around for a long time. And what's interesting is all they do is automatic water changes. And they do, I believe, this storm. I don't remember what this storm does. I think it's an ATO or something. It's some crazy ATO system. But again, look at how expensive this is for an ATO. I mean, this is literally an ATO system, and it's $430. Now, if you really want to go nuts, you can go Renew and Storm system, and that's almost $1,000. So, Coral Lovers it's interesting you said it looks great for a nano tank. So this is $980, or you can get an Auto Aqua for $200 that basically does the same thing. So I think I proved my point. So I love the Genesis system. I think it's fantastic. It's just really expensive, and it works really well. I can tell you this is a fantastic system, but there are much cheaper options out there. So, all right, so that's pretty much all of the systems that I wanted to go over. I know you guys have asked a couple questions. Let's see if I can get to some of the questions. So, any of the mods that have been on here, I would like you to make sure that whoever wins this contest today actually asks the questions today, and I will check if they were on long enough to be qualified. But I don't want to do this all day. I'm going to try to get these more condensed as time goes on. But looks like we had about 45 people at some point here, and we have 36 people entered into the contest, so we got plenty of people to enter the contest. Let's see if I can answer some questions. Yes, Brian, I plug my liter meter right into the EB8 and I have the outlet just shut off and on. Works perfectly fine. Let's see. So reefing with O, that's an interesting point that you made. Um, I can tell you from my experience that if you circulate salt water for a long period of time, I start to see more scum actually build up than if I don't circulate it. So my recommendation has always been circulate it for about 24 hours. After the 24 hours, turn off your circulation and let it just be there still. Um, as long as your saltwater container cannot evaporate, it's not going to lose its salinity and it's going to not get the scum. So that's kind of my opinion on maintaining saltwater. I can tell you that I live in Arizona and my garage is air conditioned, luckily, so I'm able to not worry about heat or anything on my water that's in there. But for some of you that are in colder weather, I do recommend heating the salt water that you're going to be holding, especially if it goes like below 60 degrees. Um, so Chris K had a question. How do you keep the pumps in sync over time? You'll have to explain that to me. I'm not sure what you mean by in sync over time. So I'm assuming what you mean is if you're using this Genesis system, the pumps might get slower and then the other one is faster and then it won't be able to monitor the amount. I think that's a fantastic question if that's what you're asking. Um, I don't know because I've never had one of these Genesis systems. That's why I like the Versa. That's why I like the other options that I gave you because the pumps never slow down. And if you know they're slowing down, the only way you would know is by your salinity changing. So, like I said earlier, I have a liter meter and I noticed that my salinity was going down. And then I looked online, or not online, I looked at my salinity and I noticed, or my liter meter, man, I'm confused. And and I saw my liter meter wasn't pumping as fast. So I noticed I had to get a clog out of the line. So really the only way to know how to keep your pumps in sync is to check your salinity, you know. You could put a flow meter on your flow sensor or auto water change. That's a fantastic idea. I never thought about doing that. Um, but yeah, you could definitely do that. You can definitely do a manual automatic change with your Versa. There's a thing, I think Devin from Reef Dudes actually is doing that, where you pull up your app and you can put a preset. You hit the preset, it does the water change for you. So yes, you can. Scott, you definitely do need to recalibrate over time on the liter meter. Generally, I've had to recalibrate every year-ish, just to check on it. But yes, you should. So Tia Tell, do you run your water through your attic? I sure do. And I don't insulate it. I've never had a problem. I use RO tubing. No, I don't see any reason. I live in Arizona, so it doesn't get cold, so it doesn't freeze up. If anything, it's hot, you know. Hatfields, I mentioned this earlier. I think larger changes are better than doing smaller changes throughout the week. I think that's a better solution. I think corals get, if you ever noticed, I don't know how many of you have done larger water changes, but if you ever notice after you do a large water change, like let's say 50%, after I'd say 4 or 5 hours, look at your corals and look at how good they look after that. You'll notice that when they get replenished with all of those trace elements and all the stuff that you need for them, they just go ballistic. Now, again, going back to the beginning of the stream, my tank, I dose on a consistent basis my trace elements and I dose phyto also. So I dose a lot of stuff that keeps the corals happy throughout the day. So I don't see ever a need to do an automatic water change. So Corwin, this is Myers Reef. I mentioned this earlier. I don't know if you were late, but The automatic water change, I think you should go back actually and watch it. But the automatic water change, there's really no way to gauge how many gallons of water. Generally, automatic water changes are done for a specific reason, either to maintain nutrients or to maintain elements. So you base it off of that. You don't base it off of just how many gallons. You do, if I'm doing 10 gallons a day, let's say on your system, I know I can maintain my nutrients. Now, if I can't maintain them at 10, then I bump it up to 15. And again, whatever you're doing your water change for is how you gauge how many gallons a day you do. When I add water, do you turn off your skimmer? No, I don't see a reason to do that. Um, skimmer again is just taking out organics, which any of the new water you put in isn't going to have any. So there's really no reason for that. I think, Garrett, your tank's perfect for an automatic water change system. I think anything under 50 gallons is a good system to put an automatic water change on. Again, only if you need to do an automatic water change, only if you're struggling to maintain parameters. Am I going to talk about the 3D cup? What 3D cup? Peter, don't be the new Desert Reef. He's not here today, so I had to make fun of someone. But I don't know what the 3D cup for the Trident is. In the mix, and it makes sense. Water, warranty, the heater. Yeah, so Garrett, pretty much every one of these systems we went over today always pulls dirty water out first. Always. Always. Um, Again, if you're using a Versa pump, you have to program which one you want to come on first. So you program, let's say at 5 o'clock, this one to pull the dirty water, and then the other one, you know it's going to take 5 minutes for that to happen. Then at 5:05, you have the other one turn on. Um, but yes, you always take the dirty water out first. Some of these systems do it automatically, like Genesis does it automatically for you. The Auto Aqua does it automatically for you. The LiterMeter does it automatically for you. But if you're doing a Versa or a DOS, you have to program it so that way it takes the dirty water out first. So Brian, yes, the LiterMeter does remember its program. It's really easy to reprogram it anyways if you ever did have an issue with it. I have my LiterMeter turned off. I've had it off for about a month now. I turn it back on. It's such a the board inside is such a just a basic board, so you don't have to worry about that. Let me pull my beautiful face back up for you guys. Okay, so that's basically most of the systems out there. Again, I don't know if there's another system out there, but these are the ones that I found that I could discuss that I've used, so I'm able to discuss them. Um, yeah, Harry had a good point there. You need so much space for large reservoirs. Yeah, like you guys probably have seen, my reservoirs are 50 gallons. They're nice and tall, so they fit in my garage really. I mean, I could park my car right next to it and I don't have any issues. Some of you probably have a smaller garage or no garage at all. So reservoirs are tough. Like I said, do you need to do automatic water changes? I don't think so. Do you need to do water changes at all? I don't think so either. So do you need reservoirs? I don't think so. I mean, if you need to do a quick water change on an emergency, it might be cheaper for you to just head over to the local fish store and get salt water from them. But again, these are all different things that could happen. I control my liter meter with my Apex. The liter meter has its own built-in controller, okay? All right, so we're at about an hour and 15. We're gonna start closing up shop here. Anybody else have any questions before we do the giveaway? Again, I'm trying to be better about my giveaways with this new system. It's great because I don't have to do anything, and if you didn't enter, that's your fault. It's not my fault. But the winner, has to have asked a question or been participating in this stream, and that's what I'm relying on my moderators for, to tell me that so that they've been participating. Because if they haven't been participating, they're not going to win the giveaway. Also, it shows me here how long you guys have been on. So if you guys just came on, I don't think it's fair to some of the people that have been here since 10 a.m. And I don't think it's fair to give them away anything. So, Reefing with O, how am I? I'm doing great. How are you? So for those that don't know, I got frogs. I got little frogs. They're about this big. Pretty cool. And yeah, I'm not gonna really go into this much, but the person that decided to threaten me and go after me has not, so that's been good. Um, I still have a calcium reactor for sale if anybody's interested in it. Let's see what else is going on. That's about it. Yeah, guys, give me if you like the stream, give me a thumbs up, man. The thumbs up really help. So yes, I am alive, Harry. I am alive and well. Have not got sick, so it's been good. Automation gets my wheels turning. Oh boy. Yeah, they're poison dart frogs from South America. Really cool. So let's see what else is going on before we get out of here. Yes, Michael, recommendation is the LiterMeter. Absolutely. LiterMeter every time. How do you know how to make RODI damp, more dirty, so it won't have what? So I won't have first water high with. I don't quite understand that question. I'm sorry. I think you need to make an ASMR video running that calcium. I'm assuming running over the calcium reactor with a large chuck. Well, I want to sell it, so I don't want to break it. Film yourself putting the reactor out of the trash to sell it. Oh boy. I'm selling it for $1,000 plus shipping. Milton, yes, I will tell everyone on the stream that I have tried my best to get back to you guys if you have questions on things. As you guys know, I run a business during the week, so during the week usually isn't good. I try my best to help you guys, but honestly, the best way to get help, Milton, is to post on our Facebook group. There are a lot of good coders on our Facebook group. There's a lot of Neptune associates that are also part of the Facebook group, so they can help you if I'm not available. It depends if I'm busy. You know, Howard, who's on the stream, got really lucky. I was able to do it all for him. Just depends how busy I am. Yeah, Brian, I thought I had sold it too, but he hasn't got back to me, so we'll see. We'll see. Does it come with a setup video? Oh boy, you guys want to get me going? You can get me going on the stream, but it's not gonna happen. Let's see. And yeah, it's too bad Desert Reef wasn't here. Remember, every Monday, I post a new picture of his reef tank, so you guys should take a look. He's got an amazing 3D printed reef tank. So if you guys ever want to see it, take a look at last week. So yeah, we'll get back to some of these streams, more programming, but I wanted to do a couple different things. So all right, let's do this. Let's do this contest. So I will tell you that what I'm giving away isn't the greatest thing. I have a few more things to give away. I don't. Again, some of the giveaways are going to be great. Some of the giveaways are not going to be so great. Once we hit 1,000 subscribers on our YouTube channel, we are going to be giving away a Trident. So I do have it. It is sitting in my office, and it's brand new, never touched, never used. So if we can get up to 1,000 subscribers on this channel, I will be giving away a Trident on the giveaway. So uh, if you have any friends that are interested in reefing, or you have any family members that might be interested, have them subscribe to the channel. Honestly, I don't care who subscribes to the channel. Once we hit 1,000, I will give it away, even if 100 of those people are not even into reef tanks. So 1,000 subscribers, then I can start doing some cool stuff on YouTube. I can start doing some super chats. I can start actually getting a little bit of money back for all these things I give away to you guys. So we need to get 1,000 subs. It'll help me help you guys. The more subs we get, the more stuff I can give away, the more bigger stuff I can give away. Okay. Also, the likes help with YouTube also, so please go ahead and thumbs up if you haven't. The 35 on the top is supposed to be the amount of people that are viewing right now, but it does not appear to be working. So I'm trying all kinds of new stuff with the stream. I got this new polling thing that's pretty cool. So if I ever want to ask you guys a question and what your thoughts are, I can just pop up a poll. So I'll show you that real quick. I showed it earlier. I was testing it. I'm just trying all kinds of cool stuff. But see, I can poll. So that's pretty cool. Just trying, like I said, trying new things. It's a cool little thing. But yeah, I got a green screen coming. I got a new camera coming. I got a light coming. I'm trying to make this a little more professional. I know there's a lot of you that have been with me since the beginning, and I definitely appreciate all the support you guys give me. It really, really helps. It makes me feel good to help you guys. So I love doing this stuff. So drop out, everyone, and give me a chance to win. So let's see. We got, let me look at the giveaway. We got 38 people today in the giveaway. And hey, we'll try this poll right now. How about that, guys? Let's try the poll. Just for fun. All right, we're going to have 2 winners, and we're going to have all right, let's see if this works. I don't know if it'll work, but we'll try. Just for fun, because I haven't got to try this yet. All right, ready? Hey, look at that. So the poll is, show prize after or before I announce the winner. So to vote, you just type in, it looks like exclamation point vote, and then you type in before or after that. Let's see if this works. I think none of you are doing it right. You have to do exclamation point vote, and then it says it right here. Exclamation point vote, and then there, Nathan did it right. Then after. I don't know if it's case sensitive, unfortunately. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But it's worth a try. Hey, it's working. Look at that. Cool. So yeah, I could do these little polls, which is pretty cool. See, I like having these little cool automation things for me because, of course, it makes it easier and makes the stream more interactive. So, all right, well, it looks like it's going to be after. You need your own swag T-shirts, Bob said. Yeah, I guess I could start making T-shirts. I need to get to 1,000 subs before I start doing anything monetary related. All right, I think we did this. Well, that worked great. Okay, So let's do the giveaway. And we'll announce what it is after. Again, it's not the greatest prize, but hopefully whoever gets this will use it. You know, coffee mugs. All right, so here we go. The winner today is Corwin from Myers Reef. You are the winner today, sir. I don't think you'll use this, unfortunately. Maybe you will. I don't know. So, Corwin, if you're still in the chat, please say hello or say something. And we will give him about a minute or so. What do you mean? What is this, Reefing Ravi? It's the Streamlabs. It's the dude that does the giveaway for me. Has 5 seconds. Oh my goodness. Well, I'm going to say he's not here. Just gonna say he's not here. I don't think he'd use this anyways, honestly, guys. I don't think he'd like the prize. All right, guys, we're gonna re-roll. Sorry, Corwin. I gotta be fair to everybody. So here we go. Look at that. Look who won. Look who won. I know this guy's here. Oh, now he's here. Oh boy. All right. This is quite a conundrum here. This is quite a conundrum because now Corwin came on. So I will show the prize, Corwin. How about that? And you tell me if you want this or not. What do you guys think? Does that sound fair? If he doesn't want it, then Reefing Ravi is going to get it. Do you think that's fair? I think that's fair. Corwin, do you think that's fair? Because Corwin won. Let's be honest, guys. But if he doesn't want this, because I don't think he'll use it, then we'll give it to Reefing Ravi, who also probably won't use it. So, okay. Here is the prize today, people. It is a electronic vacuum with a light. I don't know if you guys can see it. See? That is the prize today, people. Like I said, not the greatest, but people could use this. It works really well. I can tell you that much. I used it quite a bit. I stopped using it because I just don't have enough room on my sand anymore, so I don't use it anymore. It works. It works for gravel. It works for sand. It works for anything. Harry Singer. I used it perfectly fine. It works perfectly fine. All right, so Corwin, do you want this, or do you want me to give it to Ravi? Reefing Ravi should win. Nope, it is electronic. You plug it into the wall. So it literally pulls all the crap out of your sand without any buckets or any water. It works really well. It really does. Like I said, you got such a big tank. I don't know if this would work for either of you guys. It's not, you can see the box. It's not very tall. So, you're going to have to really put your hands in there if you want to use it. But it works really well. No hose, no nothing. It's electric. It's an electric vacuum, basically. Like a vacuum for your house, but for your tank. So Ravi, I guess you won because Corwin doesn't want it. Garrett, this thing would work for anyone with a tank. I would say 200, 200 or less. I think anything above that, this thing, it's just, it doesn't have the capacity to do that much. You know, it's just, yeah. See, Corwin's tank is just too big. So again, I told you this prize isn't the greatest today. I had to come up with something real quick, and I went to my storage and I had this. So I have some more stuff coming, but today I just had a really busy week. So Ravi, if you don't want it, I will spin again. I don't care. I will keep spinning until someone gets it that wants it. Yeah, mostly Reef just mentioned this one's a plug-in one. It's not a battery operated. They used to make a battery operated one, which kind of sucked. This one's really good. You know. Oh, okay. Ravi wants to redo it again. All right, we'll redo it again, guys. Oh my goodness. It's like if you talk, you win. That's what I'm starting to notice about this system. As if you start talking, you apparently win. So mostly Reefs, you won now. Look at that. Yes, Brandon, that's kind of what I was getting at was this would work perfectly for most people. Um, you know, the people that happen to win have gigantic tanks. Ravi has 1,000 gallon. Corwin, I don't remember how big yours was. Congrats to all three of you. So mostly Reefs, do you want this? Come on, someone's got to take it. I have no use for it. Killing me, guys. Killing me. Just spin this all day. I'll just keep hitting the pick winner, pick winner, pick winner, and we just won't have anyone win. I promise there will be better prizes as time goes on. Yeah, see, Corwin, your tank's gigantic, man. Just keep it. uh, Good. Mostly Reef said he can use it. All right, guys. So anyway, thanks for coming, guys. I I love mostly Reef's asked stuff, and he's been here the whole time, Brian. I've been paying attention. If I had a question, I would have wondered, hey, who is this person? So yeah, mostly Reefs. PM me on Facebook. Tiatel Desert Reef won last week. He's not winning ever again. I don't know if you guys saw the magic that happened last week. He just magically won. So cool. Well, thanks everybody for coming. If you haven't thumbs up, please go ahead and thumbs up. Remember, the prizes only go to subscribers. So if you aren't subscribed to the channel, please go ahead and subscribe. And I hope you guys learned something today. I just wanted to kind of go over my video that I did this week. I do have a request for all of my subs. Please, on Facebook, on our Facebook page, if you can give me some ideas of some streams that you'd like to see, things you guys would like to discuss. Also some videos if you'd like to discuss some specific topics on videos. I will get out as many videos as I can. I might make a video on my frog tank just for fun, so you guys can see it. But again, thanks again. Everybody that's in here, please hit the thumbs up. It really helps. And I see you guys next weekend. And hopefully I'll have my green screen and all my fun stuff. Stay safe. Thank you, everybody. See ya.